15, 16 years old where I really realized that I was allowing my father's absence to lead me with behavior issues because of how I was feeling. I was a young boy who will not express themselves. Mama used to always try to get me in to talk to me, but I was on that type of time like, hey, that ain't my pops. I'm not about to talk to him. Just like any other young boy. Of course, because I didn't know no better. Nobody showed me or taught me any other way to be. Welcome to the Willpower Hour podcast, where we encourage individuals to elevate their lives through personal development. Now, it is 4:58 in the morning, and I know somebody's going to ask, Will, why are you up recording at 4:58 in the morning? Well, the reason being is because I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning. Why? Because that is my time to myself. That is my willpower hour, aka personal development hours, where I am able to spend a lot of time with myself, working on my mental, priming myself to have a great day, and work on any business tasks and things like that. Now, I encourage everybody to do it. That's why I'm up early this morning actually recording. Now, I'm glad that I am actually speaking on it because I actually want to speak to people out there who have issues with their growth because they have not embraced whatever they've been through. Because maybe they're playing the blame game and they just have issues with, accepting what it is and what has been. Now, there is a thing I call bag season. And I wouldn't say I'm in that bag season right now, but I was. And I'm trying to push it on other people. What is bag season? Blame, acceptance, and growth season. That's what that is. And essentially what that is it's taking somebody from pain to purpose by understanding what blame is and understanding that they are even doing it and getting over that hump of blaming by accepting the things that has went on in their lives. Because once we start accepting things that has happened in our life, we start to elevate into our growth season. Now, for me, I haven't had the best life. I'm sure my life has been better than other people, and there's some people lives who was worse than mine. Well, I mixed that up. My life was probably better than other people's, and I probably had a worse life than other people. So I always say, like, I grew up pretty angry after my father was incarcerated 15 years of my life from 7 to 23 years old. I grew up as a young boy where I had to learn a lot of things on my own based off my environment, the people I hung around, and the things that I watched or listened to, especially the rap music. It wasn't until about 15, 16 years old where I really realized that I was allowing my father's absence to lead me with behavior issues because of how I was feeling. I was a young boy who will not express themselves. Mama used to always try to get me in to talk to me, but I was on that type of time like, hey, that ain't my pops. I'm not about to talk to him. Just like any other young boy. Of course, because I didn't know no better. Nobody showed me or taught me any other way to be. And of course, society teaches us we have to be tough. We have to be hard. Don't show your feelings or emotions and things like that. So I kept that in and I expressed based off of my actions that, basically led to undesirable behaviors. Now, I did have a great time expressing myself writing on paper because I had to write letters to my father. And that's what made me become a great writer and a great thinker because I had to write and think. And it wasn't a half a page or anything. We talking about several pages of writing, my pops. But 16, 17 years old, I started to move into that acceptance. Accepting what had happened and what it is. Realizing like I could no longer allow my father's absence to keep me in the position where I am acting out of anger and I'm making bad decisions. And I did that by, I stopped writing my pops around that time. And I'm not telling nobody to stop writing their father that is probably incarcerated. That's just what I did at the time because I thought it was the best thing. And I guess it was the best thing for me, but you know, I wouldn't just say do it just to do it. I did it because I had to let go at the time. I needed that time to break away so I can understand like, hey, you keep blaming your father, your father's absence as to why you're getting in trouble. Teachers used to always ask me all the time, because my pop's not here, because my daddy not here. And of course, I didn't really realize all these things until I got a little older. Like, I remember whenever I caught a gun charge at 18. It was my senior year. It was during tour days, right before getting ready for the season. And I caught a gun charge, and I shouldn't have caught that gun charge. I was doing good around that time. I was getting ready for senior year, getting ready to be on the right track. I just was at the wrong place at the wrong time, getting affiliated with some old people that I used to run with in another city, and I got hit with a gun charge and disorderly conduct. So they charged me with um, unlawfully carrying a weapon and disorderly conduct, displaying a firearm in a public place with the intent to shoot. And eventually, I ended up getting it dismissed, and that was a blessing. But that's when I got on the right track. But not to get off track, just kind of giving a small rundown of some of the things that I was doing and I have done. You know, my my pivotal point in my life started at 16, 17 when I broke away from writing my pops. Of course, around 21, I started being more intentional about it, understanding what I wanted out of my life. And that's when I eventually start seeing my life really shift. Now, 21, I'm in college. I'm still 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But for the most part, I'm more leaning on the good side. I'm not really into being around certain things. I wasn't really going to as much parties and things like that no more. I was having a little bit of fun, but not as much fun. I was focusing on working. I was focusing on trying to learn how to pay bills, trying to figure out what kind of career I'm going to be in and things like that. But I told my story in a brief time frame, because there are people out there who are struggling, especially the youth. And the reason why they are struggling is because they have not went into that self-discovery mode where they identify who they really are. Why have things actually occurred? Why they feel the way they feel? Why they present the way they present? And part of that is because a lot of people is scared of sitting alone with their thoughts. And I get it, because some people might have, traumas that are deep and it's not really easy to cope with, but we have to face them and stop running. And we also have to stop blaming other people in situations as to why we're acting a certain way or feeling a certain way. I mean, it's okay to feel how you feel, but don't let it dictate your actions to the point that it gets you in a precarious situation, especially for the young person who's going to run into this and see this. What you're going through, what you've been through, mama not there, daddy not there, mama or daddy not supporting, friends not supporting, grandparents not supporting, you didn't come from money, you didn't come from education. All of those are great reasons, but they also become excuses when we don't do anything about it. It is a great, reasonable excuse, but life still goes on, and we have to hold ourselves accountable and not let the things that we've been through in our life dictate how we're acting. You are in control of changing your life. How do I know that? Because I did it. I did it. Nobody really helped me with my growth. I knew off of getting in trouble and watching certain things that I didn't want a certain life. So I started changing. I started reading books. My first book that I ever read was it was I always forget the author's name, but I end up googling how to be successful, and a book came up by a great author, and it he had a book called How Successful People Think. That was the very first book that I read that gave me my mindset shift. And then the second book that I read, and these are books that I actually read and I actually finished and actually enjoyed it because I didn't like reading. I didn't have the patience for it. The second book was Rich Dad Poor Dad because I wanted to get into real estate at an early age. My grandmother would always say, hey, you should buy back tax houses one day. I don't think she knew exactly how, but she knew that that was the way to go back then. I'm sure it's the way to go right now too, but she used to always say that. So I Googled actually 100 ways to get paid. And real estate was like, I think real estate was number one on the list. And I don't know how I got on to Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I ended up reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I thought it was just a strict real estate book. But when I read it, it was really a mindset shift. Like it was a pivotal moment in that book. I'm like, wow, like the person who went to school got this education, living paycheck to paycheck with a poor mindset the way he's thinking, but this person who dropped out of school or didn't have a great education, entrepreneurial, rich mindset. So it gave me a pivotal moment. So these things are what helped me shape my mind and start growing. Then of course I started getting into the YouTubes and just kind of watching certain things. See, we are who we hang around. No matter how a person wanna take it or see it, you are who you hang around. You are or you will become what you tune into. What entertains you will train you. That is a real statement. That's why it's important to flood your mind with things positive. If you want positive out of your life, you got to get around things positive in your life. That's going to help you grow. If you want negative, you already know what you need to do. And the crazy thing about life is that to be positive and to grow, it takes way more effort than to be negative and not have growth. And I always say anything left to itself will go left. But if you continue on and you work on yourself day by day, like I do, 4 o'clock in the morning, starting off, that's my willpower hour, I continue to go right. So for anybody out there, especially the youth, you're looking at someone who come from stressors and struggles, but I made it. If I don't amount to anything in life, like financially, I know I made it mentally because of the shift I made, because I wanted to be better. And growth is intentional, not accidental. You got to want it. You can't just say it, like you really have to want it. It turns into a thought, meaning a want, and then it has to become a burning desire if you really want to shift. Young man or young female, or even the adult that's watching this. Get around people who support you. Get around communities that support your growth, that will influence your growth, that will complement your growth. We can't be mad and upset at anybody else if we're not growing, because we have the power and ability to take matters into our own hands no matter what has happened. That's why I will forever tell my story, especially to a young person, because most young people can only see, articulate, and do what they are exposed to. So if a young person see a person like me who went through basically the same things they went through, and then I tell them like where I'm at now, it gives them hope. I remember talking at an alternative school for the first time. I was nervous. My fifth grade teacher, who became my principal in high school, invited me to come speak. It was Red Ribbon Week because there was a lot of kids there for drugs and things like that. And he knew I was a paramedic. And of course, I'm around all that. I see that. Then responded to overdoses and everything. I remember he hit me up Man, I ignored his message for about 5 minutes because I was nervous. But I picked up that phone. Picked up the phone. I'm like, man, I'm ready. You know what? Let's do it. I can't be running. So I ended up talking to the kids at school about drugs and things like that. And the way these kids walked in, you know, chest poked out, hood and stuff. After I told my story where I used to be and where I am now, you can eyes getting big, presenting like they are really into what I was saying. Like kids just need somebody to model, and that's what I am here for. But I'm gonna leave it at that. If you found any value in this, like, share, or subscribe. Send this out to a young person. Send this out to an adult who needs some help or some encouragement or anything like that. We are here to encourage people and promote growth. So stay tuned for the things we have going on. And I hope that you affirm the lifestyle you want. Thank you for tuning in to the Willpower Hour podcast. I am William Chapman III. You have a blessed one.